Hey guys, Paradoxio here. Welcome back to a brand new video, everyone. Today we are going to be taking a look and learning about conditional statements in Python. Now, before we get started, I did want to apologize for the lack of uploads in the past week. Basically, I got hit by two separate winter storms, one of which knocked out my power for about 4 days. And I had no way of creating any content to upload, so I apologize about that, but I am back. And as far as I'm concerned, everything is in order. Now, in this video, we're basically going to be learning about conditional statements and how they work in programming, in the Python programming language, of course. Now, the way I like to think of a conditional statement, at least at its simplest way of describing it, is essentially something like a simple if-then clause. And if I had to relate it to something in real life, I would say something like, if I am hungry, then I will go eat. And the exact opposite would be, if I am not hungry, then I will not eat. So there is a simple if-then clause there. If you were hungry, then you would go eat, because that's just what you do when you're hungry. Of course, the exact opposite if you're not hungry. That is the simplest way I can kind of describe it, and that's my analogy that I like to use whenever someone asks me, hey, what is an if statement? How does it work? Just because I found that that's the easiest way to describe it, and most people understand it from then on just like that. But in Python, what do we use conditional statements for? Well, we use them for a lot of things. Typically when we want to evaluate through any data or any values and such, whenever we want to process them. For an example, let's say you're building a web application with Python's Flask, and well, you want to evaluate some login data that was just passed or submitted to the server, and basically you want to verify that the password matches to the account username or email that was given. Well, you would basically check if the password matches. And if it does, then you would let them log in. And if it does not, then you wouldn't let them log in. And in most cases, you would probably redirect them to a message that says, hey, your login was unsuccessful. Come here to submit a reset to your password or try again. So basically, we would use a conditional statement in that sense to check if the person's password is correct. And if not, then we would go on from there. We would use them for all kinds of other things. We just mainly check if certain statements are true or not. And if they're not true, then, well, we would not execute the following block of code that's under it. And instead, we might execute something else. And I'll show you guys what I mean with that later. But for an example, let's say we have x here and it's equal to 10. And I want to check if x is 15 instead. Well, I could type in if x is equal to 15. And pretty much what I can do for an example is I can just print x is 15. And basically this is the code here. Line 5 will be executed if this conditional statement passes. And what I mean by pass is, I mean it can either pass or fail. And specifically, this conditional here, this condition can either be true or false. And if it's true, then we will execute line 5, and if it is false, then we will do nothing, in my case here. If it is false, then we will not execute line 5. So that's basically what is happening whenever we write our conditional statements here. We are checking for each condition to either be true or false, and if it's true, then we will execute the following code within that if block. So we've defined x to be 10, but we're checking it to be 15. So if I go ahead and run this code, we see that nothing happens. But what if I change the condition here and just check if it's 10? Rerun the code. Actually, we fix this first. rerun the code here, and now we get the message x is 10 into the output. Now, how I did this here, how I made this check, is I used what's known as an operator, specifically the equal to operator here. Now, there is a lot of different operators that we use within our conditional statements. In fact, here's a few of them right here, are the most common operators we use. We have our equal to operator, which we just seen, but we also have the not equal to operator, which is the exact opposite of the equal to operator. So our equal to operator, x equal y, checks if y or x and y is equal. And then we have x exclamation point equal y, which checks if x and y are not equal. So we have the equal and not equal to operators. And then we have greater than and less than. So now line 4 here checks if x is greater than y. 5 checks if y is greater than x, or if x is less than y. And then we have the less than and equal to and the greater than and equal to operators. So line 6 is going to check if x is either less than or equal to y. I don't even know how I managed to mix the word less and x together, but I did. But, like I said, line 6 is going to check if x is less than or equal to y, whereas line 7 does the opposite. It's going to check if x is greater than or equal to y. So that is our most common operators, and let's just try another one. Let's use greater than. So let's say x is equal to 4. But we want to check if x is just greater than 0. So if x is greater than 0, then we're going to print positive. If I go ahead and run this code, we have positive printed out into the output. But what if x is equal to -5? Then we will run the code again and nothing happens. We don't get this message printed because this condition evaluated to false because x is not indeed greater than 5, or I'm sorry, greater than 0. But if I switch the greater than to a less than operator here, then if I were to go ahead and run the code after I change this to negative, then we're going to get negative printed out into the outputs here, because we're now checking if x is less than 0, in which it's -5, so therefore it is. So that's pretty simple how we can use operators just to check for the values of certain variables here. And like I said, basically what's happening is this is going to be true or false. And just to show you what that really looks like whenever it's processed or evaluated here, if I try to print a statement like 4 is greater than 5, obviously 4 is smaller than 5, it's not greater than 5, so that statement is incorrect, it is false. So when I print this in the output, I get false basically stated here. But if I switch this out, make 5 greater than 4, if I run this again, it's going to print out true into the output. And that's basically what our conditional statements look like in the end when they are evaluated. They are going to either look like true or false. Now, let's talk about the and or operators. And or operators both essentially allow us to incorporate more than one condition in a single conditional statement. So let's say I have x and y. X is 10, y is going to be 15. I can type in if x is equal to 10 and y is equal to 15. And we can type in x is 10, y is 15, basically. And the thing about an AND operator is it requires this condition and this condition to be true in order for the whole thing to evaluate to be true and for this code on line 6 to be executed. So if I run this code, it works just fine. Our message is printed because x is indeed 10 and y is indeed 15. But what if I change this check here to check if y is also 10? Well, if I go ahead and run this code, nothing happens. And even though x is 10 and this is true, what's happening is this second condition here is failing because y is actually 15. So we have true and false here. And because we have true and false, line 6 will not work. Now before, we had true and true, and that's why line 6 worked. It was executed just fine. So let's make a note here. With an AND operator, and I butchered that spelling there, all conditions in the if statement must be true in order to execute the following code. So with an AND operator, all the conditions in our if statement must be true. And none of them can be false. So if I have 10 different conditions, 9 of which are true, but 1 is false, line 8's not going to print. Or line 8 is not going to execute whatever code you have in there. Now, if all 10 were true, then yes, line 8 would be executed. If all 10 were false, line 8 would not be executed. So remember, when using an AND operator, all the conditions in that if statement must be true. Now, with an OR operator, it only requires one of our conditional, or condition inside our conditional statement to be true. So, here I have if x is equal to 10 or y is equal to 10, then we're going to print is equal to 10. So x or y is equal to 10 in that case. Now, when I go ahead and run this code here, x or y is equal to 10. Now, this condition passed because x is indeed 10, so we have true here, but y is 15. So really what happened was this condition was false. But with an OR operator, only one of your conditions need to be true, meaning that if you have one that's true, then the rest can be false, or you can have them all be true. Just as long as only one, just one of your condition is true, then line 8 here will execute, no problem. Now, if we have both false, just like the AND operator, line 8 will not work because all of them are false. All the conditionals are false. Now, whoops, let me change these back. I don't even know what I'm doing now. We can mix operators together. So we could check for x to be 10 and or y to be 10. And we could add an AND here. And x to be 15 or y to be 15. Actually, let's make some more variables here. And yeah, we'll leave b as 15. So x, y, and a and b, 20, 15, 25. Or I'm sorry, 10, 15, 25. So if x is equal to 10 or y is equal to 10, and a is equal to 20 or b is equal to 15. So let's break this down. So we have 4 different conditions here. They're all split by this AND operator here. But what's happening is this AND operator is causing these 2 conditions and these 2 conditions to be merged into one condition. And these OR operators here are splitting them. And basically, because it's an OR, only one of these 2 conditions need to be true. So if I go ahead and write a comment here, basically this can look like if true or false and false or true. Now remember, OR only requires the bound conditions to be true or false. Only one of them has to be true. And basically, if one of these are true, then this is going to be true. So we can just go ahead and truncate that false and make that true because it's an OR operator. So if true and false are true, well, this one here is true. So we can go ahead and just write true there. And true, both are true, then if true. So that's how we can kind of shorten our if statements here. So let's take a look at this. if X is 10 or Y is 10, and A is 20 or B is 15. Well, we have X is 10 here. So this OR operator here would essentially evaluate to be true because X is 10. Now, for the other side of this AND operator here, we have it checking for A to be 20 or B to be 15. Well, B is 5, so that's going to be false. But A is 20, so this is going to be true. And because we're using an OR operator there, this can be shortened to true. And because we have an AND, in theory, this should print. And let's just make this hello world or something. And we get it in the output. So let's look at it again. X is 10, so this is going to be true. Now Y is 15, so this is actually going to be false. Now on the other side of the AND operator here, we have it checking for A to be 20, in which it is. So A is indeed 20. Let's make that true. And we have B is equal to 5, but B is not 15 here, so this will be false. But remember, with a true, with an OR operator, only one of our conditions must be true, in which it is. So we can just shorten this to be true. Same thing on this side, because it's also an OR operator, true. But now we have the AND operator left here. And remember, with an AND operator, all conditions in the if statement must be true in order to execute the following code. So therefore, this passes, and this is true. And then we will print hello world in the output. So it's pretty fun to break these down and actually predict what's going to happen here. And I know this might be a little bit confusing, but it does really get easier towards the end. So the main takeaway with this short little segment about AND and OR is that with an AND operator, all the conditions that the AND operator is going through must be true. All of them must be true. But if it's an OR operator, only one of them has to be true. So just keep that in mind. And if you want me to basically show you how to partition this whole if statement more, basically this OR operator here is only encompassing these two, and we can surround them with parentheses to make it easier to read. Same thing on the other side of our AND operator here. So there's that, and this AND operator is encompassing both of these two sets of conditions. And just like that, we have ourselves a pretty complex if statement going on here. Pretty neat. Well, let's talk about else and elif as well, actually. So let's say x is 10 here, and we're going to check if x is equal to 5. And we will print x is 5. But if I run it, obviously x is not 5, it is 10, so nothing happens. But if I add something known as an else block here, we can type in something like print x is not 5. And now what's going to happen is if I run this, we do get something in our output. And basically what happened was this if statement became false. And because it was false, it went ahead and defaulted to this else statement, which printed out x is not 5 into our console. So think of else as sort of like a default for all if statements if you implement an else block there. Basically, if all the conditionals fail, then we'll just default to else, which is going to print x is not 5. So if this is false, then print line 7 or execute line 7, basically. Now, every if statement can only have one else statement. So if I type in x is equal to 5 here, I cannot have another else. This is going to result in a syntax error. We cannot have more than one else statement. We can only have one. Now, we can have something else like an elif statement. Now, an elif statement is basically there for whenever line 4 fails, then we're going to try line 6. So x is not equal to 5. Well, maybe x is equal to 6. So we will print x is 6. Well, what if it's not 6? Well, then maybe it's 7. And well, maybe it's not 7 and instead it's 8. And whoops. And then maybe it is 10 at the very end. And now we can type in x is not a number from 5 through 10 for the else statements. So basically what's going to happen is when I first run this program, it's going to check if the value of x is 5. And if it's not, then this is going to be false. Will not execute line 5. Instead, it's going to run through this second statement here, this second conditional. And well, if that does not execute, or I'm sorry, if that does not evaluate to be true, then we'll just move on to the next one, move on to the next one, all until one of these work. So I have x is equal to 10. Let's go ahead and run the code. And then we get x is 10 in the output here. And basically what I am doing is going through this if statement, false, 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 false. Oh, this is true because x is indeed 10. Well, if I change this to something like 6, then what's going to happen is we're going to get x is 6 in the output because this first condition failed, but this one passed. And whenever an elif statement passes, all the other elif statements before are basically ignored. So they're like as if they were never there. Now, what's the difference between that and just not having elif here? What's wrong with me just having all these if statements? Well, it's not really optimized. It's bad coding practice. If we're working with the same variable here, just use elif. Your life will be so much easier. Your code will also run faster whenever you're making more complex programs. And another thing, if I basically change all these to if statements here, then this else statement's only going to apply to this if statement. It will not apply to the rest of them. But if I use elif, then this else statement applies to all of these conditions here. But did you know there's a better way to write something like this? Yeah, there is, and that is through match and case. Now, match and case is a bit special. It was recently added in, I believe, Python 3.10. And basically, it's the same as switch and case. If you were coming from a different programming language like Java or C# or something like JavaScript, for an example. So it's basically the same as that. So let's say we have x is equal to an integer input of give me a value or give me a number. And what I can do is I could type in match x and then case 0, case 1, and then case 2. And these are just examples. You can have as many cases as you want. Basically, this is the same thing as if x is equal to 0, elif x is equal to 1, elif x is equal to 2. So these two sets of conditionals are the exact same. We're just writing them differently. Now, why might you want to do this? Well, in some cases, writing your conditional in one way or the other might actually improve the performance of your code. This match and case statement I have here might actually evaluate quicker than a traditional if, elif, else statement. Speaking of else statement, let's add an else here. Now, how would I do that in a match case scenario? Well, basically, Python has a built-in feature where we can just type in case underscore, and that is essentially going to act the same as if we had an else statement here. Pretty neat. Now, let's try this out for real. So, here, I want to print the number is 0. And then same thing for the other ones. And then for this underscore, case underscore here, print the number is not 0, 1, or 2. So let's go ahead and run this code. Give me a number. Let's type in 2. And we get the number is 2, which is off this case 2 on line 9. Run it again. Give me a number. Let's do 1. And it runs this one here. And then run this again. Whoops. Run this again and not click off of that. 0. Number is 0. But what if I choose a different number? Like 5 or something. Well, then it's going to say that the number is not 0, 1, or 2, which is coming off of this case underscore statement here, which acts the exact same as an else statement if we're working with a traditional if, elif, else block. Now, there is one more way we can write if statements, and this is my favorite. It's called the ternary, or ternary. I have a little bit trouble saying it, but I like it better because it makes it a little bit more human readable, at least in my opinion. So let's say we have x is equal to 10. And we want to print a message like hello world if x is 10, and if it's not 10, we want to print something like goodbye world. Well, what we can do here is we could type in print hello world if x is equal to 10, else print goodbye world. Now, just like match and case, this could evaluate quicker depending on what you're doing, what you're trying to code or program. So use this wherever you may feel comfortable. I like it better. I like writing it in ternary because it's just easier for me to read. See, I'm printing hello world if x is 10, and else, then I'm printing goodbye world. So let's run this code real quick. We get hello world in the output, but if I change x to be 5, we're going to get goodbye world instead. And that's pretty simple. I think you can actually have and blocks in here, or I'm sorry, and operators. So let's type in something like y is equal to 5. So and y is equal to 10. So yeah, we can actually include and or operators as well. So if I go ahead and run this code, we still get hello world because this is true and this is true. So that's pretty simple. Now that's just about it for conditional statements in Python. It took about half an hour, so I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. We just learned how conditional statements work in Python in 30 minutes. So thank you guys for watching. Be sure to subscribe, leave a like, and comment on what kind of tutorial you would like to see next time. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to join my Discord server. That is where you can receive updates on when I upload videos to my channel. And that's also when you get to see updates on my official website, which is currently down because I am doing a complete overhaul. So all operations, whether it's file uploads or account creation, is currently paused. But join my server if you want to stay tuned for updates about that. And also subscribe to my second channel. Link will be in the description. That is where I upload mostly gaming content. But again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye, guys.